Hi everyone, welcome to the pitch. Thank you for coming out today. So the pitch is sponsored by the Dolly Lab and the Magnuson Center for Entrepreneurship, and the goal of it is really to foster creativity and the spirit of innovation. We believe that with creativity and innovation, it takes a lot of practice. So the pitch is really giving us an avenue for students, staff, and alumni to really work and practice this innovation and potentially come up with the next Snapchat or the next Pulse. So today for the schedule of events, it's going to start off with the pitch presentations. Each pitch is going to be 2 minutes long, followed by a 3-minute Q&A session. During the Q&A session, with audience live participation, you guys are going to be able to text in your questions, which I'll get to in a second. So keep a close watch of the pitches. When you have a question you think of, text it in. And the judges will look through those questions and pick one of those to ask the presenter. Afterwards, after the pitches, so there's going to be 10 teams. They're all spectacular. There's going to be a guest speaker. The guest speaker is a 19 who goes to Dartmouth, and he's our keynote speaker, and he's going to talk about entrepreneurship and his experience with entrepreneurship. And lastly, and then afterwards, we're going to have voting and pizza. So pizza's going to come in during that time. You guys are going to grab your food, settle down, and then also text in your vote for the audience winner. And then we're going to have the announcement of the winners. So the prizes today, there's 3 prizes. So first is going to be the Dolly Prize. It's going to be 1 term of Dolly development. The second prize is going to be a Magnuson Prize, so it's $1,000 plus startup support from the Magnuson Center for Entrepreneurship. And the last one is going to be the audience prize winner. So you guys are going to decide the winner for that. And it's going to be for the best pitch. So just to kind of go over the judging criteria, the judging criteria is going to be based off of these 4 things. So first, it's going to be, is the idea something new and cool? Is it something that you haven't seen before? Is it going to have like a grand impact or like a small impact, or is it going to change our way of thinking? That also goes into the impact potential. And then the third is feasibility. So basically, how doable is it going to be at Dartmouth? So whether something could be very grand or very abstract, in which case we're looking to make sure that this project has success and like is doable at this campus. And lastly, it's going to be the quality of the pitch. So how well they convey their idea, if you know what the idea is, and how they're going to do it. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce our judges. I realize I didn't introduce myself either, but my name is Amber. I am a Dartmouth 20. I'm a computer science and economics major, and I've worked at the Dolly Lab as a developer, a project manager, and the lab manager. With that being said, we have a total of 4 judges. We have 2 judges from the Dolly Lab and 2 judges representing the Magnuson Center for Entrepreneurship. Can each judge just stand up as I introduce them? So Young is a senior studying Japanese, literature, and language. He's also a UI UX designer at Dolly. He is particularly interested in the UI UX of video game products. And in his free time, Young likes to watch movies and play the guitar. The next is Annie. Since her sophomore year, Annie's been a member of Dolly, working as a developer, PM, and now mentor on its core leadership team. She's now a senior who loves gadgets, ideas, and tricky but not plain difficult problem solving. Technology in the Bay Area excite her, and she's worked at Yelp and Airbnb and will be joining Coinbase after graduation. On campus, you can find her procrastinating in Dolly, grinding in Cheminy, exploring soup options at Collis, and doing the spicy noodle challenge in her apartment. The 2 judges from the Magnuson Center for Entrepreneurship. First is Justice. Justice is a Dartmouth 13 and a Thayer 13 and 19. As a PhD candidate at the Thayer School of Engineering, Justice's research focuses on signal processing and machine learning methods in wearable medical devices. He co-founded the startup Clairways to commercialize the respiratory monitoring technology that resulted from his thesis work. Justice's experience and expertise is embedded systems, medical device instrumentation, and applied machine learning. Last but not least, we have Brenda. Brenda is a 19 from California who is studying biology and computer science. She's a founder of They Grow Up So Fast, a healthcare tech startup that creates new media for patient education and data collection. So, as I mentioned earlier, during the Q&A session, what you guys are going to want to do is you're going to text 37607, and you're going to text the pitch 723 to join into the poll. This should be on the handout on your seats, and you just text in your question. So, with that being said, let's pitch.
Think about the last time you presented in front of a group of people. What was going through your mind? Were you thinking about the person sleeping in the back? Do you remember who asked you a question afterwards? If you're like me, you're probably just wishing the presentation would be over. But if you're a teacher, you don't have that luxury. If you're a teacher, you have to remember who was sleeping in the back and who you called on while recording about a million other things. But just like students come into the classroom with preconceptions of the material, teachers come into the class with preconceptions of their students, and we call these implicit biases. Implicit biases, known or not, can have lifelong adverse impacts on students. Now, this became really important to me during my first year of teaching. I learned I've been calling on boys more than girls, and this came as a huge shock as a female math teacher. I never thought that bias would surface. But by receiving that feedback early on, I was able to correct course and actually make my classroom a more equitable learning environment for kids. And so I started talking to teachers, and I found out three main things. First, teachers believe that implicit bias exists. Second, they don't feel equipped to make changes in their classroom currently. And third, while existing ed tech resources are pretty good, teachers don't know what to do with the data they receive. And so that's where we come in. Teach Delta is a voice AI technology that helps teachers make personalized and actionable changes to their instruction through quality data. We believe the market is hungry for this, and that's why we're here tonight. We desperately need a technical team to help us build an MVP to test out on the market. In order to build on the insights that we've already gained from our pilot, we actually need to get this device in teachers' hands. I want to close by asking you to think about your favorite teacher. What comes to mind likely isn't the lesson you learned, but rather how they made you feel. Teachers leave an enormous impact on kids, and it's our mission to help every teacher leave the best impact they can. Thank you. I'm Susie, by the way.
Great. So I'll start with the judge question. So great page, by the way. It seems you talk about the need being with teachers, right? But then who is your actual customers? Maybe institutions might want their teachers to do better too, and then teachers might. And how does your actual customer influence your solution?
Sure, that's a really good question. So I think in the short term, right now, we're only working with teachers, but I agree with your point. I think something we've thought a lot about is partnering with school districts as well as teacher certification programs like Teach for America and other teacher training institutes who might be interested in this. And so as a starting point, we definitely want to get this in teachers' hands so we can build the trust with teachers and build credibility. But I think in the long run, in order to make this revenue sustaining, we need to capture a wider audience as well.
Okay. We also have an audience question, and the audience asks, how will the technology work?
So think about Alexa for the classroom. That's what I've been telling people. And the way it technically works is that it would be something that's running in the background of your class, and rather than having the teachers collect the data manually, it essentially would capture all the voice data and then transcribe it, assign it to individuals, and then there would be an analytics program on the back end that would help us run various analytics about the classroom. So let's say the teacher is concerned about calling on boys more than girls, or the tone that they're using with certain students. There would be a back-end analytics system that deals with all of that and then generates the report for teachers.
Thank you. That was Teach Delta. Just as a reminder to the audience, if you guys want to take notes while these people are presenting, so you can remember what each of the project is for the end voting.
Hi, so I'm Matt.
I'm Jake, and we'd like to introduce you to our company, Artificient. But first, Kareem. Kareem's a DHMC researcher who's trying to take pictures of pulmonary cancer tumors and train an algorithm to accurately predict and model whether or not a patient has pulmonary cancer. But the problem he has is he doesn't have access to adequate data stores. And that's because the data he needs is across hospitals all around the world. Now, this problem isn't isolated to just Kareem. Data researchers, companies, and people all across the globe struggle with this problem. And ultimately, that's because data is often sparse and distributed across many data sets all around the world, and AI requires very centralized, large data sets, and little guys don't have that.
So this distributed data problem affects anyone from Kareem to large institutions like Google. And Google has actually developed recently a solution to circumvent this distributed data problem. So Google has realized that there's vast potential in the data stores existing across their millions of Android phones. There's photo data, text data, and other forms of data, all of which could be used to improve their consumer-facing AI like autocorrect. However, Google realized that they can't simply extract that data from user phones and bring it to their servers. That would be a privacy violation. So, using federated learning, Google's new strategy, they bring the AI to the data. An AI on Google's server is downloaded directly to an Android phone and uses the processing power and the data set existing on that phone. Once an AI has trained across several Android phones, that AI is pushed back to Google's server. Therefore, Google has performed learning without violating user privacy.
But the problem with this solution is only Google has access to that network of Android phones. So where does that leave everyone else? And also, the data holders aren't fairly compensated for the use of their data.
So Artificient's patent-pending, blockchain-based, peer-to-peer learning network enables connecting any AI researcher, not just Google, with any relevant data holder. And further, it allows the compensation of those data holders. Next one. We
So
see
potential
applications in healthcare, research, consumer finance, and others like IoT.
Yeah.
All right. So.
So in terms of the healthcare data that you're trying to access, how do you plan on navigating these very complex electronic medical record systems in order to follow, as you say, HIPAA and GDPR regulations?
Sure. So one of the beauties of using blockchain technology is it can sit above any existing data architecture, right? So by pushing all of the data to a blockchain, a good way to think about it is like a black box, right? So you push all of the data to the black box. You push the algorithm to the black box. The data holders can't see the algorithm. The algorithm holder can't see the data, and you get a learned algorithm, and privacy is ensured.
And I want to extend on that. Part of the data formatting issue is something that will be very specific to each application that we try to implement with this peer-to-peer learning network. And that's something that we can see Dolly helping with a lot by developing a user front end to this whole problem. In order to ensure that data is consistently formatted so that algorithms can run seamlessly. Questions?
One question from the audience. What stage is the prototype at?
So currently, we just have a 30-page patent describing the technological implementation of this. And we've just been discussing with several professors and blockchain developers along with researchers trying to settle on an initial use case and get some of the programming moving forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jack Wilson. I'm a faculty member in the Studio Art and Engineering Science Department and an architect and engineer, and I'm here to talk about the Majuba project. Majuba is an electric motorbike project based in Marrakesh, Morocco. Roughly translated, Majuba means the unseen becomes seen. And the idea is that the artisanal community, the workforce in Morocco, has the potential to create things like electric motorbikes, but that potential is currently untapped. So the concept is to build an electric motorbike made by Moroccan artisans for Moroccans. Artisans represent 20% of the Moroccan workforce, and Morocco is committed to producing 40% of the country's electrical power requirements through renewable resources by the year 2020. So this project has an environmental component, it has a social action component, and it has an economic component. The connection to Dartmouth is Eric van Hove, the artist who conceptualized the project. He's Belgian who lives in Morocco. He has an atelier with, working with Moroccan artisans to create sculptures and now the Majuba project. Dartmouth engineering students, Tuck students, and others from arts and sciences, as well as faculty, have collaborated on this project. And we're interested in the idea of creating an app, of working with Dolly and Magnuson to create a web app that would really organize this project. The makers all have smartphones. Even though they might not be literate, they work and create their enterprises through social media. And so an app would be a huge benefit to this project. If you're interested in learning more about Majuba, there's currently an exhibition in the Hopkins Center in the Strauss Gallery running through November 11th. So thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. One question I have is, why do you feel that a web app is necessary to help the Majuba project grow and better, as opposed to using existing products such as Facebook groups or even blogs, if it's mainly for the sake of communication? If you could specify on that.
Well, in working through this with Eric, we really feel that an app is the appropriate kind of mechanism to develop the project, because we can create various levels of security and work with the artisans. Many of them work visually, so we can create a repository for information, drawings, specifications that the artisans can use and share with one another. And they also can make direct communication with customers, too, through the use of the app.
A question from the audience. How do you anticipate being able to communicate with the makers if many of them are illiterate?
Well, using primarily visual aids, we use a combination of English, Arabic, and Berber language on the app. I think that would be something we'd be interested in investigating. But primarily they use their smartphones and social media as their primary means of communication already. So we think it's a kind of a natural extension of this project.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, hi everyone. This is the Planner, and we are designing a project to create an intelligent course planning assistant for our Dartmouth students. So why do we need this? Because currently, in the course selection process, there's too much information to handle for students. You have to keep track of one course that offered, what periods, what prerequisites you need, what cross lists, everything is hard to manage in your head, right? So what we want to design is an algorithm that will essentially taking all the courses that a student will want to take at some point when they're at Dartmouth, and it will consider all the factors that you need, all the logistical factors, and will output many different scenarios that will ensure there are no conflicts and that will ensure these schedules work. D-Planner, our project, will also have a robust search system so that students can find courses based on properties that they want. And in addition, it will display courses in a map format that will show prerequisite dependencies so that students can see which courses they need to take in order to unlock the next courses in their major. And we will aggregate all of the information that students need about courses in one spot so that they don't need a billion tabs open when they're electing courses. And yes, that's it. So to close, we are here to help students choosing courses because, again, academics is most important at Dartmouth, and we want to allow students to make the most informed decision possible. Thank you.
Thank you. One question I had is, in some cases, smaller departments undergo a lot of schedule changes, and oftentimes that, you find yourself planning to take a course even at the beginning of the school year or a couple terms ahead, and you realize that that course is not available, or a professor has changed, or the curriculum has changed. Yes. How do you foresee your product kind of being flexible with those kind of situations that occur quite often at Dartmouth in undergraduate students?
Yes, so that's a great question, and that's something that we brought up with the office registrar when we met with them. So there are courses that are consistent, right? Like take Econ 1, it's gonna be offered every fall of every year. So those we don't have to worry about, but right, for those courses that do fluctuate, the specialty courses, again, there's really no way around that unless you change how the way departments work. So what we will have is basically notification. I'll tell them how certain we are of whether this course will be offered then. The ORC catalog, which is where we're referencing the data from, is updated every year, and the timetable every term will update so that we will get the most accurate information. And students select courses only when the timetable comes out, right? So by that time, we'll have the most updated information.
Great. And an audience question is, what stage is the project at right now?
The project is currently at a beginning state. We have a web scraper that basically collected the database of courses for the ORC. So we have all the 3,000 courses on each of their properties. But what we're looking for is essentially technical expertise to develop this into a web format so that all students can access it. What that means is a very robust front-end system so that they could have this interactive user interface. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Charity. I love food. I seriously love good food. Growing up, being raised by an African mother, food was an important aspect in our household. She always used to make all these great meals, and our house always used to smell good. From the mac and cheese to the baked potatoes to pinto beans with so much garlic that our friends always used to want to stay for dinner. But now that I live by myself, I don't have the time to cook because I have a busy career. And I seem to go out all the time and eat out at restaurants, but the food doesn't taste as good as the way my mom would make it. So that's why I figured, you know what? Everyone should be going through that same problem that I'm going through, missing mom's home-cooked meals. That's why Amazing Kitchen wants to create a platform that will help people like you and me to help us eat that great food that we miss at times. So we'll use people like my mother, your mother, grandmother, friend, sister, brother, anyone who loves cooking. They can come to your house and create a great meal for you, or they can create it from their own house. I think food is an important aspect of everyone's life, and food brings people together. I can go on and on to talk about food because it's important, and I think it's important to everyone. So I think we should use this platform to help all of us to get to know each other, cook for each other, and make this next food industry into the next big thing. Thank you.
So in terms of privacy and safety, do you foresee any concerns around that as your project scales?
So when it comes to privacy, obviously the first thing I think about as a female is I wouldn't want a stranger to come into my house. So Amazing Kitchen is going to be different in where we're going to make sure that we get background checks on everyone. When you go on that platform, you see someone's profile. It will have background check completed, a little profile of that person, and when they come to your house, you will get an email or you will get a picture of the person who's coming to your house, and it will tell you that they're right there at your door so that you won't open for any stranger, and you open knowing that the person is right there.
And a question from the audience, have you looked into the legal implications of selling food from one's own kitchen or not from a restaurant?
Yes, so that's why it'll be a two-way thing where the legal implications and policies of selling food from your own home, they're a little bit restricted in some neighborhoods, some cities. So that's why it'll be a two-way thing as well, where the person can come into your own home. So that can be a neighbor who can walk down the street to come into your own house, and that is more lenient because someone is coming to cook those meals in your own home.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Amanda, and these are my kids. And they are 5 and 7 years old, the only grandchildren on both sides of the family. They have birthdays, they get stuff sent all year round, they go to parties, they give their friends stuff, and they really have far too much stuff. So Hive Party is the concept that will bring less stuff into kids' homes and more fun. It's not just me and other moms that are experiencing this overwhelming sense of enormous clutter in their houses. Donations to charities are going up as people try to get rid of the stuff that they have. 30% of millennials classify their home as very or somewhat cluttered. And on a global scale, the amount of plastic that we see in the oceans is really reaching critical point. 90% of the $20 billion toy industry is single-use plastic toys. So there really is way too much stuff. And we know from research that kids have way much more fun and they have much better experiences when they have less stuff. So Hive Party is going to facilitate an opportunity for parents who are inviting kids to their kids' birthday parties to choose an experience over giving stuff. Because even when people say, don't gift, people want a gift. So parents will choose an experience. It can be a sports lesson, a museum membership, even a camp. And then they create a honeycomb over the image of the experience with each segment representing a dollar amount. They send out the email invitation, and each email address corresponds to that dollar amount, and guests can fund the experience through a simple online payment system, such as PayPal. This experience industry is set to grow, and it will continue as people find that their houses are becoming smaller and they're moving into smaller regions. So although the houses are getting smaller, the sad part is that global garbage patch is getting bigger, and it's twice the size of Texas. So Hive Party will hopefully go some way to addressing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And a question that I have for you, imagine that you have the product built and that it functions as you want it to. How do you plan to market it to parents and make sure it takes off?
So that is a great question. There are multiple mompreneur communities that I'm connected with on both coasts that are absolutely huge, and they have conferences. So at a large scale level, that would be a way to get the word out. And then at a local level, I see local organizations, particularly in the Upper Valley, specifically the Montshire or any organization that offers a camp, being a partner for this product, and then marketing that to local mom communities and offering that as a way for them to immediately link up with somewhere that they see a need. So swim lessons at the UVAC or a camp at the Cedar Circle. So I think there would be a combination of local growth and global awareness marketing through these mompreneur networks.
And one question from the audience. Part of giving a gift is that the recipients know that someone is giving this gift from them. And then how do you plan to bridge the anonymity of donations to make this a gesture that someone wants to show?
Yeah, so that is a great question. And it also taps into what I see Hive Party really being effective at doing. So these will not be anonymous segments on the honeycomb shape. They will be related directly to people on the invitation list. Those email addresses will correspond to a honeycomb segment. So the recipient will know who contributed to that experience, and then when the experience is happening, there's the conversation of, well, this is a swimming lesson that Auntie Jane in Tokyo bought for you. And the conversation continues way more than what I see when kids get bombarded with loads of presents and they're just tearing it open, and then there's no real ritual. The ritual sort of diminishes there because it's just a mass of stuff and get through it, and it's really kind of sickening to watch my kids do it. So Hive Party will continue the conversation of gratitude and real meaning rather than kids just tearing through and wondering if they're going to find a gift that they really like. So I see it as being a deeper experience than I see them currently experiencing, and then the opportunity to continue the conversation when the gift is actually used, with even perhaps sending photographs of the kid at the swim lesson or something that's taking place in the experience that they have been gifted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline Leone. I'm a tech student and formerly a professional modern dancer. Imagine looking at yourself in the mirror all day, every day. That's what dancers do. And dancers want to look good, but feel good about what they're wearing while they do it. It was something I always struggled with, and in my interviews with over 100 dancers and their teachers, I learned I was not the only one with that problem. Dancers report frustration with poor shopping experiences in local dance retail outlets and in e-commerce stores, in the variable quality of the dance apparel that exists, and the lack of transparency in sourcing and manufacturing practices, and the unreliable availability of all the dance stuff that they're looking for. And there are a lot of dancers out there. There are about 1 million in the United States, and they spend over $250 million every year on dance apparel. And the current players are not doing themselves any favors. There are big legacy brands who've been around for over 100 years and have made things in the exact same way for those 100 years. There are fashion-focused brands who have very questionable quality, and one e-commerce aggregator platform that dancers report hating. The solution to all of this is Corleone. Corleone is a digital native brand that manufactures sustainably sourced, ethically produced dance apparel and sells it on a great website that actually uses modern e-commerce services. And further, we'll partner with dance studios to give back a percentage of those profits. In my interviews, I learned that dancers really care about the types of clothing they're buying it, how they're buying it, and the sustainability aspect, but they can only follow those routes in their everyday clothes. No dance manufacturers out there are offering those options. I'm uniquely poised to solve this problem because of my experience in dance and business, and I'm supported by 3 advisors with expertise in manufacturing, in retail, and in e-commerce and early stage startups. I project I can capture about 5% of this market in the first few years, and to make this happen, I'm asking you all for early stage seed funding to build prototype leotards and a website, and Dolly support to build beautiful digital artwork that will bring this digital brand to life. Thank you.
So one aspect of, so this idea is very similar to the Everlane Warby Parker line of things, if I'm interpreting it correctly, and a huge reason why for these successes is that they have a very strong brand identity. So how would you build yours?
So the way that I would expect to build my brand identity is first and foremost through that branding piece that I'd love to be able to build with Dolly. So something that folks really resonate with, is beautiful, is aesthetically pleasing, and is centered around that sustainability aspect and meeting dancers' needs. Further, I want to build very tight relationships with dance studios and professional dance companies to bring that brand to the forefront and introduce it to dancers early in their careers and make it accessible throughout their careers.
Great. And an audience question is, how do you attract professional dancers to this new option?
Ooh, great question. So it's about having some champions. So as with many digital native brands and all of the brands you previously mentioned, it's about partnering with folks who share your mission. So for example, there is a prima ballerina at American Ballet Theater, one of the biggest dance companies in this country, who is a very powerful sustainability advocate. She's a surfer in addition to dancing and cares a lot about clean oceans. And so she has this amazing platform. I'd hope to be able to partner with brand ambassadors like that to attract professional dancers and help make them champions of what we're offering. Thank you.
All right, my name is Skylar Perot, and I'll be presenting Cosmos Chem, a device for recycling carbon dioxide to sugars for astronauts. So a lot of you may have seen the movie The Martian. If you haven't, quick summary. Basically, space is really dangerous. So one of the major problems, there are a lot, is that there's no air in space. And so while humans can survive for weeks without food and days without water, you can only really survive for minutes without air. So what's the solution? Well, Earth is really a great spaceship because of plants. You know, there's ecosystems that are able to recycle the carbon dioxide. The problem is in space, plants really aren't a robust enough system. So our solution is to create an artificial photosynthesis route to produce these sugars instead. And the potential for this is already quite large. Even today, NASA would save approximately $150 million per year on the ISS. And with long-term human exploration of Mars becoming more and more potential, with SpaceX, Blue Origin, maybe even Boeing, this is only going to grow and expand. Thanks.
There's a lot of recent research in this area of recycling carbon dioxide. How does your technology compare to what other people are researching on?
So I think what a lot of other research is going into currently, it's not actually turning it into sugars. So you can convert carbon dioxide to methane, for example, quite easily. That's what they do currently on the space station. The problem is that, on Earth that's fine, but if you're in space, you can't really do much with methane. You just have to vent it. So I think the use cases for the research are quite different.
And from the audience, how far is the technology at this moment?
Sure. So components of the technology are already being worked on. They're in development. The entire system is probably 10% done at this point. So there's a lot of research to be done, but we're doing the research currently, and the progress looks promising.
So another question we had was, what do you hope Dolly Lab will help you achieve?
So I think Magnuson is probably where more directed towards. In terms of Dolly Lab, I think just getting some awareness, more internet presence to sort of recruit students to help work on this project would be really helpful.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. I'm Max Goldman,
I'm Ryan Blankmeyer.
and we'd like to pitch the best idea ever called Buzz. One thing that Ryan and I noticed, one problem we noticed, is that it's becoming increasingly difficult for small businesses to compete. We're not on the slide yet. For small businesses to compete with large companies. In Hanover, unfortunately, this is the end of our PowerPoint, unfortunately. But also in Hanover, unfortunately, there we go, we've seen the failure of everyone's favorite pizza store, EBA's, to compete with Domino's. We're now seeing the failure of the Dartmouth bookstore to compete with Amazon and other online booksellers. So the question that we're trying to address is how we can empower small businesses, how we can help small businesses succeed in an era that's dominated by big companies. And the way that we'd like to do that, we can go to the next slide now, is through a mobile app called Buzz.
Yeah, so students can sign up on the Buzz platform to receive discounts from their favorite local businesses. And this would help businesses in two ways. One, they could increase their customers and they could increase their sales. Secondly, not only could they just increase their customers, but they increase what they know about these customers. So are these students, what year are they? Are they athletes? When are they coming to these local shops? What day, what time? And the more insights we can give these local businesses on the students that are going to them, the more they can establish a foothold in this local market of college students. Another cool thing about Buzz is the opportunity for flash sales along with everyday discounts. So if local businesses conduct a series of flash sales at different times for different discounts, the more they do, we can provide them insights on the optimal time to conduct a flash sale, the optimal discount to give for a flash sale.
So we think that college campuses are a great place to start empowering small businesses. Right now, there are over 20 million college students in the United States, and every year those college students spend more than $160 billion in discretionary spending, items like food, clothing, etc. So this is a big market for us to tap into, and the number of college students in the United States is only growing, and they're spending more and more money. Which is a good thing for us and a good thing for small businesses if we can help empower those small businesses to capture their local student markets. So we think that the college student market is, one, a place that we can actually achieve meaningful change and help small businesses, but two, something that we as founders are familiar with, something that we could envision ourselves recruiting our students, our friends, to sign up for this platform, speaking with owners of small businesses to help them enroll on the platform as well. So this is something that we're very excited about, and we hope you are too.
Great presentation, beautiful slides. So I have a two-part question. First is, what is your business model? How are you going to make money? Because you need to make money for this to be sustainable. And then the second question is, how do you get your fair set of students? Because what you are competing with is DBA and Amazon, like you said. So how do you combat that? How do you get your fair set of students?
Well, I'll address the first question first. How do we make money? So there are a few potential models. We're not exactly sure yet, but the most important thing is to actually get a lot of students and a lot of small businesses on the platform, and then we can kind of decide which way we'd like to make money. There are two kind of possible ways that we've been thinking of. Just Ryan and I have thought of kind of charging, let's say, a 1% fee for all of the transactions that go through on the Buzz app, and in return, we provide small businesses with increased sales and increased analytics about their customers. The second is potentially something like a subscription fee. If a small business wants to be on the Buzz platform, that could be, $200 a month or something similar. In terms of recruiting students, I actually think that's not as big of a challenge as we would think. I think the harder challenge would be recruiting small businesses. For students, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So I think as students, in my experience, people are pretty unhappy with their meal plans to start with. I think a lot of people look for opportunities to go off campus if they're out of swipes, out of DBA. For example, knowing what type of student is shopping at your store. For example, a lot of athletes go negative in DBA by a lot every term. So maybe athletes start eating off campus more because if you're going in negative in DBA, you're just paying money as if you could, pay anywhere else. So I think as far as recruiting students, incentivizing students to go off campus is probably something that we would be able to do given the structure of
And
the
just one more quick thing. I think that's a problem, a very serious problem for Dartmouth, but I have friends at other schools like Ohio State University, for example, big college campuses where they don't have something like DBA where they're always eating on campus. So we think that's kind of locally a problem for Dartmouth.
Questions from the audience. How do you anticipate competing with platforms such as Yelp and Groupon?
I think just focusing on the locality of these college campuses. So Yelp might work really well for bigger cities, but when you focus on a local student population with local businesses, I think giving these small businesses the opportunity to know specifically students better would give them an advantage.
So I basically think it's three things. One is a focus on college students, two is a focus exclusively on small businesses, and three is a focus on actually providing data analytics in a way that something like Yelp or Groupon would not for small businesses.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And this is last but not least.
Hey everybody, I'm John Bell, and I'm here to talk about Project Majel. Majel is a new way to create augmented and virtual reality worlds. So with all of the new VR and AR hardware that's getting out into the field, people are starting to get more exposed to what you can do with it. And they start to get inspired to create their own projects. The problem is that then they open up Unity. Unity is this incredibly intimidating environment that is used to create these sort of projects. Basically, when a new person opens Unity for the first time, all of the sort of creative energy that they got when they were inspired instantly disappears. So Majel is a simplified interface that runs on top of Unity and allows new developers a way to very easily create these 3D worlds. It replaces working with a keyboard and a mouse with working with voice recognition and gesture recognition. If you're inside of an HMD, you shouldn't have to take off the helmet and start typing on a keyboard to add something to your scene. You just point, say, put a building there, and the system knows how to do it. Now, Majel is an educational language along the lines of Scratch and processing, and so it is a simplified layer on top of a much more powerful language underneath. But with Majel, we actually have the opportunity to do a lot more than these sort of languages because we can turn all of these voice-activated devices into actual creative tools rather than just something to order new widgets off of Amazon. Majel is early on in development, and so there's a lot of thinking to go into it. There are tech demos out there combining VR and voice, but they're not in the educational market, and so we're working with a blank slate here. I'm a developer myself, and I'm working with Richard Corey, who co-directs a VR lab. So we do have some ideas about how all of this should work, but we need your help to turn this into actual shipping project and a Unity asset people can buy in the store. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. One question I had is, what are some things that you would expect someone who is completely new to AR and VR development to learn by using Project Majel? And how much of the skills that they gain through Project Majel will be transferable to full-on VR and AR development?
Sure, so you have to think about this in the same sort of terms as a lot of the other gateway languages and technologies that have happened over the years. So if you look back at something like, I'll even take Minecraft. That was a way of starting to get people hooked on the concepts, and then they say, well, maybe I want to have a little bit more ability to play with this, and so I'm starting to learn how to mod it, and now I'm learning how to write Java. Go back before that, the history of the web is that HTML was really easy to learn, and so people started saying, okay, well, now I'm hitting the borders of HTML, and I'm going to start learning Perl or PHP or whatever it may be. Back before that, BASIC on the Commodore 64 and the TRS-80. So we have this pattern that repeats over and over again. So the key to Majel working is keeping it simple, and it's creating those boundaries. It's not treating those boundaries as a bug. It is a feature, and I mean that in a non-ironic sense, unlike most of the time that I would say something like that. So yeah, people will learn the sort of basic concepts about how things operate in space, how things collide with one another, all of the real basics to it, but then they'll want to extend on their own.
One question from the audience. What specific market do you plan to pursue first, and how do you plan to do so?
Sure. So there's something called the Unity Asset Store. And this is an extension to Unity where people go and sell, well, they sell a lot of different things, but sometimes it's like art, sometimes it's code that you can drop in. Majel would be something that goes into the Unity store and can be downloaded by developers or by educational technologists. So the ed techs are the ones that would really create the network that spreads this across different campuses, I think. If you think about it in terms of an economic model, if you have, for instance, an $80 textbook and you have a free coding environment that you use that $80 textbook to learn, isn't it better to then have free educational materials which would go along with Majel and only pay like $10 to download the Unity asset? So the students are actually making out pretty well on this too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. So that wraps it up to our 10 teams. We had 10 incredible teams, all coming from students, staff, and from all across the Dartmouth campus. And putting together an idea and like coming up with the business plan, how you want something to be implemented, and then putting together your whole idea, compressing it into a 2-minute story is such a difficult job and requires so much work and thought put in beforehand, and also having the courage to just come up the stage and present your idea requires a lot of courage. So can we give our 10 contestants one more round of applause? With that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to have our keynote speaker. Afterwards, we're going to talk a little bit briefly about the Magnuson Center for Entrepreneurship and the Dolly Lab, how to further apply for grants and how to get involved. And then we're going to have pizza and settle down and hear the announcement for the winners. So our keynote speaker today is a Dartmouth student. He's a 19. Aaron Litt is a marine life enthusiast and published underwater photographer who aspires to raise awareness of marine biodiversity through art. His social venture, Mia Mira, is a fashion line inspired purely by the patterns and colors of creatures found underwater, and has garnered support from the United Nations, the James Cameron's Avatar Alliance Foundation, and the Resolution Project. He hopes that his designs will act as visual catalysts to raise awareness of marine biodiversity and motivate conscious consumerism. Aaron was named a United Nations Ocean Explorer in 2017 and is currently studying mathematics and human-centered design at Dartmouth. So let's give a round of applause for Aaron.
Amber, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm incredibly honored to be invited to speak to all of you and share a bit about my project and my story as a designer, entrepreneur. So Amber has already given an amazing introduction, so I'll skip that. So I'll just share a bit of background story about how I got involved with marine conservation. I started scuba diving when I was 10, so I was super fortunate to be introduced to this world where you see amazing coral and octopuses that are master illusionists, fish that walk with arms, and sea slugs that come in all shapes and colors. So when I was 10, I became completely captured by this world. And I carried around with me a small handheld camera and would document all the bizarre creatures that I encountered and show them to my family and my friends. And so it became kind of an obsession for me to take photographs of everything I saw and to share the fact that the ocean is not just a murky place with sharks and scary human-eating creatures, but actually home to amazing and wonderful biodiversity. And so as I grew older, my photography became more than just a documentation system. It became an art form where I would use art as a medium to raise awareness of marine biodiversity. And this project, this photography project, has taken me to publish a book about marine photography with the ambition of raising awareness of marine biodiversity. And so photography eventually evolved into fashion. And the idea behind fashion is that it's another art channel to raise awareness of marine biodiversity. You might ask the question, why fashion? And the answer is because it's prevalent. It's prevalent in society. Everyone makes conscious fashion decisions, even though some of you might not believe it when walking through FOCO. But everyone makes fashion-conscious decisions, and it's also visually impactful. If you see a nice dress or a nice jacket, it'll stay in your mind, and you'll think about it after. And so it's using fashion as a medium to tie the concepts of elegance, of beauty, of aesthetics, and the marine world. So I want to talk a bit about the design process and how I came to create my first pieces. And while I do that, I'm just going to scroll through some of my designs so you have a sense of what I'm doing. So it began with ideation and experimenting with different concepts. And so these are some of the concept sketches that are the earliest works in fashion, marine-inspired fashion. But with all things, the sketch doesn't look like the final product. You digitally recreate it, and it looks less beautiful than on paper. And then you transfer it from digital to fabric, and it looks even worse. So it's been a tough process of recreation and digitally iterating countless times to finally arrive at a product that is marketable. But that's not to say that it is the final product. In fact, all of my designs I consider as different prototypes. And it's testing it with the audience, asking for opinion, whether that's going through your Instagram or your Facebook, or simply going to your family and friends and asking for their opinion. And so one of the biggest advice I have for aspiring entrepreneurs is simply to create and start building. You never know what a product might look like, and I'm a strong believer that the first sketch is never equal to the final product. And so the first advice I would give to anyone who's an aspiring designer or entrepreneur is start building with your hands. This is a dress. This is a sweater inspired by a jellyfish. And so the process behind it is to pick out elements from a sea creature that I'm passionate about, analyzing its colors, its texture, and then applying it to fabrics, and hopefully create a garment that is visually reminding of sea creatures. The second advice is that some of the biggest struggles I face as a designer entrepreneur is doubt. It's doubt about whether my product is worth selling. It's doubt about whether my philosophy is compelling enough. It's doubt whether I have the ability to bring a product to market. And I think all designers and entrepreneurs face this kind of doubt. I think the most important thing to realize is that when someone looks at your product, they're not really buying the product. They're not after the utility of your product. Rather, they're after your passion. They're after your passion, and they're after the story behind your product. And so whenever you have doubt and you wonder whether it's a product that's worth selling, whether you have the confidence of bringing your idea to your friends and family, remember the most important thing is your passion and showing them that you are passionate about an issue you are willing to tackle. And it's a story about the design process and the creation process that drives the success of your social venture. So thank you so much all for listening to me. Social entrepreneurship has given me a wonderful opportunity to marry my skill in art and passion for entrepreneurship to tackle an issue that means a lot for me, which is marine conservation. And so I hope you all find the same fulfillment and excitement in your own ventures, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Let's give him one more round of applause. Now, before we get on to voting and food, this event wouldn't be possible without the Magnuson Center for Entrepreneurship and also without the Dolly Lab. So if Jamie and Tim could come up and...
Go first? Okay. I can probably use. Everybody can hear me, right? So, I'm Jamie Coughlin, director of the Magnuson Center for Entrepreneurship. Thank you for being here tonight. And we've had a lot of changes, and so I wanted to use it as an opportunity just to share with you all some of the exciting happenings around entrepreneurship on campus. So, many of you have always known us. Recording, yes. Many of you have known us from the beginning as DEN, and this past spring we had a transformational moment where we raised some endowment dollars, so from alumni, and we have transformed ourselves into an actual full-blown center for entrepreneurship here at Dartmouth known as the Magnuson Center. That was based on a $20 million gift from Rick and Allison Magnuson, class of '79, that led that transformation. So that's really the takeaway here is the gateway brand for entrepreneurship at Dartmouth in support of students, faculty, alumni, staff, and the community is now the Magnuson Center for Entrepreneurship. And we have organized ourselves into what we refer to as 4 key pillar areas. As you can see them here. The first is experiential learning. That comes from our president himself. For the past 5 years has been talking about this concept of learning by doing. And obviously entrepreneurship is a terrific manifestation of that. And that's geared for students. The second is startup support. Many of the folks here today are in that category, right? They have that kernel of idea, they have that prototype, and they're in search of a business model, in search of building a venture, and we support that, both for students, faculty, and staff. The third is oftentimes what we refer to simply as our secret sauce. It is this alumni activity in entrepreneurship and venture capital in which just Dartmouth has just amazing access and representation to. And so at the center, we asked ourselves, how can we engage with that alumni talent, bring it back to campus for all of you to interact with mentorship, future investments, etc., as well as how can we serve those alumni entrepreneurs that are starting out all over the globe. And then the fourth is this question of, to what extent can Dartmouth, through the center, contribute, support the growing entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the Upper Valley, New Hampshire and Vermont, and New England, etc. We do this through a growing team, so organizationally we've structured these pillars with various team members. One of our team members, Sam Carpenter at the bottom here, is someone that actually is now dedicated on the West Coast in the Bay Area at the service of growing some of these activities to bring back. And Annie Wren is in charge of our startup support. She's here tonight that worked collaboratively with the Dolly Lab to put on this event. One of the other hallmarks of us evolving to a full-blown center of entrepreneurship is we now have a board of advisors that was actually activated by the Board of Trustees themselves. So 20 individuals that really do represent what I would say is kind of the diverse climate that we're trying to build around entrepreneurship here at Dartmouth, which includes not only technical entrepreneurship, but social entrepreneurship, representation from the West Coast and the East Coast, and all different shapes and sizes and flavors. And last but not least, we have a physical center, which is known as the Innovation Center, that sits between CNA Pizza and Ramonto's, the two pizza joints in campus. But eventually, along with the Dolly Lab, we'll move to the west end of campus as part of the expansion that is happening with Thayer, in which a new building over the next 2 or 3 years will be created that will house additional Thayer activity, computer science, and this growing ecosystem of entrepreneurship and innovation. And so tonight, this is just a continued collaboration with the Dolly Lab, which represents both this entrepreneurial climate and this builder climate. And it is my personal belief that a healthy entrepreneurial ecosystem does require both those dreamers and thinkers, but also those builders. And it's the mirroring of the two. And another evolution of us that you can find out on our website, as well as the Dolly website, is this collaboration that we're launching in which the Magnuson Center will be supporting up to approximately 5 or so teams that can apply to actually have support by the Dolly Lab. So the Magnuson Center will sponsor 5 or so teams per term so that all of you entrepreneurs out there can have access to the resources to actually realize and build the visions that you are all coming up with. So thank you for all being here tonight. Don't be a stranger. Please get in touch with all of us and our team, and I'll hand it over to our great colleague, Tim of the Dolly Lab. Tim?
Thank you, Jamie. So I'm Tim. I co-founded the Dolly Lab about 5 years ago, and this has been a pretty amazing night, pretty inspiring for me personally. We've done a whole bunch of these. We've been doing them for 5 years now, and yeah, sure. And the pitches keep getting better. We've been playing around with the format. I think having this like more interactive thing has been really cool. Thank you, audience, for participating. Maybe next time we'll have more than one audience question. They've been so good. That's been really cool. And for those of you who don't know what the Dolly Lab is, I just wanted to do a very quick, brief intro. So the lab is basically a builder space. It's a program for empowering students to learn how to build stuff. We work on real-world projects. It's around 60 students a term, working on around 10 projects. And it's been sort of a really great success in students having this opportunity to build cool things. And some of those projects have come from the pitch. This is the lab, the physical plant. We moved in to this new space a couple years ago, and we had outgrown it immediately before it was built. So it's packed with a lot of people. And mostly I want to talk about this night has been about empowering you all and empowering building projects. And the lab's mission is about empowering students to build things. And so there's some more resources I wanted to mention. One, this isn't a resource, this is more of a demo session, is Dolly and a computer science class present all their projects on November 13th, 6 to 8 p.m. In Jones Media Center. Please come. It's very cool. We have grilled cheese and really good beer, open bar for those of you who are old enough. Other opportunities that Dolly has, there's an open lab night every Monday night from 5 to 8 p.m. We just our doors are unlocked. Come by, you can hang out, you can get support for any of your building activities. There's smart students, smart staff just hanging out, waiting for you. So that's another opportunity. You can apply for support through our website. So the new program that Jamie announced with the Magnuson Center, you can apply through our website, or there's a link through the Magnuson Center website. So go do that. And there was something else. What's the last thing? Yeah, no, just apply. So I think the last thing I want to do was thank the Magnuson and Dolly staff for putting this on, Amber and Erica especially. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So pizza should be getting here very soon. What we're going to do is we're going to move on to voting for the audience prize. It's going to be same way, same number that you've been texting. And it's going to be open for just a brief period of time, and then we're going to close it. So be sure to have your thoughts put together. And then just clarifying, a letter is going to correspond to each team. However, it's not ordered in the order that you saw them in. So just clarifying to make sure to not think that the second person that presented is letter B. So make sure you check the slide. We're going to announce the winners. If you are one of the winners, just come on stage to get a photo at the end, or come to the side of the stage so that at the end we can get photos. Also, after announcement of winners, pizza is in the back. Help yourself to food and drinks, and thank you for coming to the pitch.
Okay, so for the audience winner, we have Buzz. Congratulations.
For the Dolly Lab Award, the award goes to D Planner. Congratulations.
And the Magnuson Award goes to
Corleone.
On behalf of everyone who is the organizers and for the judges, and thank you so much for everyone who participated and pitched. And so thank you so much. Congratulations once again to the 3 winners we have tonight. And yep, thank you.